Welcome to another Sparks Enterprise Architect Masterclass, and once again we will be working with Enterprise Architect version 15.2, which I'll just open now. And when you open Enterprise Architect, you'll find yourself on a start page where you can open an existing repository or create a new repository. A system is or can be thought of as a network of interconnected objects and processes that perform some function. And modeling is writing down an approximation of a system for the purposes of documenting, analyzing, and changing that system. A model can be a rough diagram sketched by hand through to a complex simulation of executable software. Now, Enterprise Architect is a modeling tool that excels at modeling complex systems. Its roots are in software engineering, but has been developed with systems and enterprise modeling as its focus. Enterprise Architect is a very capable and flexible tool used by many industries and supports modeling with many modeling languages and frameworks, for example, UML, Archimate, SysML, TOGAF, etc. Some pretty core standard modeling frameworks. With Enterprise Architect, a modeler can create a cloud of elements representing aspects of the system linked together by many types of relationships. And these interconnected elements create a cloud of information that can be added to and interrogated through many types of views. And each view brings its elements of interest into focus and uses the relationships in the model to pull related information into that view. In addition, those elements and the relationships can have a wealth of data and characteristics recorded on them. So Enterprise Architect allows you to marshal all of this information into one linked repository where any changes in any of the views or to any of the elements are immediately and globally reflected in all other views and representations of the information. Enterprise Architect has a series of windows offering tools and functions that the modeler uses. These can be found under Portals and then selecting Windows. And this brings up a whole list of toolboxes and other views to explore the model. Look at the properties of various elements, including tagged values and notes. Work with diagrams and more specialized tools. And quite important down here are the traceability windows, where you can analyze the different connections between the elements. But we'll start simply by looking at the project browser over here, which is perhaps the most important. Now, I already have an EA training repository open, and you can see here in the project browser that there's a hierarchy of folders, also known as views and packages in EA. And this is a very hierarchical view. The hierarchical structure and that package structure is very fundamental for automatic report generation, importing and export of data. But perhaps the structure is most important because it provides an intuitive and efficient way to find elements. It can show the steps of a predefined modeling process, and it assists with integrity and consistency of your model by confirming that necessary information has been added to packages. And if version control is important, that function depends pretty heavily on that package structure. I chose that because it's a fairly basic diagram type. Now on this, we can within this package we can add elements. Just popped off the screen there. I'm going to give it a name, element 1, and I'm going to give it a particular type, and I'm going to give it a class, so save and exit. And there we can see the element in the browser on the left, as well as there's a box on the diagram. Okay. A more intuitive way of creating elements is by using a diagrams toolbox. Each diagram has its own particular kind of toolbox with elements, relationships, and other groups of tools. So to create a class, as I've just done through the context menu, I click in the toolbox and then I can create a class like that. If you want to recreate the same element again, you can hold Control and then click on the diagram as many times as you like to create multiple elements. There are several ways, as with everything with EA, to create relationships between these elements. One way is to click on the toolbox. I'm going to choose an association and then click and drag between elements to create the relationship. Now you can see it highlights when you're hovering in the right place. So I'm going to release the mouse on class 1 and there we have a relationship. And just to show you that exists, if you go to the portals window, go down here and open the traceability window. Now if I select class 1, I can see that class 1 has an association from class 6, which is the element we've just created. Another way to create relationships is through the quick linker, which appears when you select an element and then click and drag on this arrow to the right hand side and drop it on a different class. You can see it's working just as before, highlighting the target. When you release, it gives you a short list of all the allowed relationship types. So I'm going to create another association. You can see it's exactly the same as before. And now class 1 has an association from class 6 and to class 4. If you're creating the same relationship, pressing F3 allows you to create the same element multiple times. Finally, if you click and drag the quick linker and drop it onto a blank area, again you can choose the relationship type, but this time you can choose the element type to place at the target end of the relationship. So once again I'll choose class, and you have an opportunity to rename it, but I'll stay with the default name class 7. Okay. And once again pressing F3 allows us to keep making relationships. Okay, so now click on class 1 again. We can see class 1 has an association to class 4, but I can continue through the chain of relationships to see that class 4 has an association from element 1 and class 1. So I can follow the chain either on the diagram or in this traceability window. Now this becomes particularly useful once you've got a more complex model. If I wanted to explore some of the relationships, I can create another diagram. I'll call it explore.